so other people will be on here. So that will dictate what we do today, and I'll tell you that as we're a slide in. So as you are already here, or as you're coming in, you'll see that the screen is shared. That's going to be our guide for today, just because there are so many of you, and it is the easiest, likely most organized way to do that. I am here as your curriculum director, also a senior instructor. Because there are so many of you, I asked my left-hand lady, also a senior instructor at ISD, Becca Marks from the Hawkins School in Ohio, to join. Becca, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm Becca. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio right now, and I'm excited to chat with some of you and meet some of you and get moving for NAPS.
Yay, thank you, Becca. Okay, and then Chase Williams is also here. I just want to introduce Chase. I don't think that I can. I'll just say his name and then before it speaks. He'll be with us in case we run into any technological issues, or in case you have any issues. I'll give you that email at the end, but he is your go-to guy. So with that, we are about a 60-minute time limit, give or take a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get started. All right, so here we go. There we go. The purpose of our hour, again, give or take, is for you. Okay, we're obviously here to serve you. That's one, what ISD is about, but two, that's what coaches in the forensics community are about. So my goal is to make sure that you walk away from this hour a little bit more comfortable about nationals. Okay, I don't know most of you, so I don't know what state you're from. I don't know what school you're from. Therefore, I don't know what size of team you come from. So this might be your first exposure to anything nationals oriented. Okay, so us working through this next hour will just show you it's like any other tournament, and you got it. And then also, I mean, you're going to look at a bill, and you'll be like, oh, good, it's just Congress. So if you walk away with anything today, at least in this next hour, it's that you're going to be killing it at nationals, and it's all okay. I think the bigger aspect that Becca and I want to walk out of here, hopefully achieving, is helping you identify what your strengths and weaknesses are in congressional debate. I know that is difficult, given there are lots of you and only 2 of us. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what that looks like. But I do ask that you're flexible, kind of like a classroom would be. And then based on that, identifying your strengths, weaknesses, if you want to address those weaknesses, what are those strengths, you come to ISD online. Our last slide on this will show you when those are. Or if you want to talk about football, because that is just, if you come to ISD, all I do is talk about football. I'm not going to force my opinions on you, but you know, if you're like, oh my God, Gronk come out of retirement was whack, I'm your girl. All right, so here's how we're going to adapt today. Okay, hopefully, because I only got like 12 people in response, but I'm a teacher, so I probably should have expected that all of you looked at it and then we're like, nah, Miss Stanchik, or nah, Brittany, it's cool. So we're going to adapt as need be. Hopefully you've prepped a bill to enact body cameras for police officers. That was the bill that we chose because it's been on numerous dockets, and it's not swaying you one way or another. I think it's pretty accessible for everyone. So the concept, right? I'm so smart. I'm so proud of myself here. Is that we're going to ISD. Okay, so in a group setting, okay, we would inquire. That means questions about the topic that you may have in general. Okay, affirmative, negative advocacy, your speech in specifics, because that may not fall under what I've discussed. Second tier, then we move to strategy. I think that the biggest misconception of debate, and one thing that Becca and I really try to focus on in longevity of congressional debate, is skills. Okay, so it's not just about content. You'll notice that when we get into our activities for today. So that next tier is about strategizing, okay, especially when it's like 20 kids in one room. What do you do with your argument? How do you succeed? How do you appeal to judges? And then finally, right, we move on to debate. So questions that you may have on refutation, weighing, impacts, etc. Our big disclaimers for today. We're pushing 3 tiers out of many, okay, many that we would normally address at camp into 1 hour. Okay, Becca and I did accommodate for the fact that we're not going to get through everything we want to, everything you want to, and everyone. So like we would do at camp, and I know I have a few kids in this session who have been to camp with us and can attest to that, as long as you can share it with us within the next 48 hours, and that means Sunday night, whatever we don't get to tonight, Becca and I will actively edit within the next 48 hours. So hopefully while I'm speaking, you're taking a look at those email addresses. Maybe you're taking a screenshot or you're writing them down, or you're already like drafting it up, getting that Google Doc ready to go. Because again, kids in the session who have been to camp can tell you one-on-one coaching for sure is helpful, but one of the benefits of being online is that, damn, like you can keep going on Google Docs through those comments. So, and we only have like an hour here. We'll only get through probably a few, depends on how flexible we want to be and how you guys have the rest of the weekend to share that with us, and we will take care of it. We are about to break into 2 different entities. So Becca's gonna take a breakout room. I'm gonna take the other breakout room. There's so many of you to begin with, that was like the easiest way to narrow it down. But in the same way I've been asking you to be super flexible, I would like that. I know you guys haven't been in school for like a minute. I know like my school just graduated yesterday, but I asked that put yourself back in the classroom and understand that as in any discussion, right, or any lesson, it may sway. So we'll always come back to what we need to, but if for some reason we don't cover that, that's why Becca and I will bounce back, give you what you need after we're done here.
I put our emails in the chat, by the way, so if you
so
just
much,
copy and paste them out of there.
Becca's so kind. I was all like, I'm actually going to disable chat, so just kidding. All right, so this is where we're at right now, and I know Chase is going to help us break apart rooms. When we do break apart rooms, I'm going to take over mine, obviously. Becca's going to take over hers, and then we can get a little bit more interactive. Becca, do you have anything you want to say before Chase breaks us all apart?
Not at this point. I think once we get split, but I'm okay right now.
Perfect. So then Chase, if you could help us, I can't see how many, yeah, you just want to split it. That would be dope. Okay, so everyone take a few seconds, take a breather while Chase is divvying us up. Oh, I guess I can fill this time with something useful. Oh, there we go, yay! I can't see all of you. I have to stop sharing real quick so I can see all of you. There we go. I will ask you what you want to do. We have 2 options. We can go big and general, okay, and you can simply ask me questions about those 3 things, or, okay, so that's option 1, or I can choose a few brave souls to actively give their speech if they have it prepared, and I'll show you what like a coaching session or feedback looks like. Okay, so those are your two options. I'm gonna repeat them one more time, and then I'm gonna let you vote because it's Congress, right? Like that's what you get to do. So the first option was that we as a group walk through ISD. That does not disclude or eliminate me editing your speeches. If anything, that means I have to edit everyone's because we probably achieve that here. So that's option A. So if you're down for that, you should have the ability to give me a little reaction. Can you give me a thumbs up if you'd like that one? Remember, option B then is that a few brave souls speak and I critique, and it's super wonderful. I'm so nice, don't worry about it if you're like worried about that. Okay, so option A, reaction. That means we're gonna have a group discussion. Everyone hates that. That means you can vote now. Otherwise, if you don't vote. I think you guys are just feeling like peer pressure from everyone else because they're coming in. 4, 5, 6. Okay, now they're all going to it. Okay. Option B. If you want option B, which is you can see what a coaching session's like. Go ahead, give me an emoji. And then if the rest of you don't vote, communism is cool too. 1, 2, 3. Okay, mathematically that doesn't make any sense. Okay, good job. There we go. Okay, mathematically that one makes more sense. So that's what we're gonna do for right now. And then if all of you are like too scared, which you shouldn't be, because I'm sure you're all popping, I'm sure you're all awesome. All right, then we'll bounce back. So in that option B, that's what we're gonna do. Let me describe what that looks like for you, okay? Camp is very different than what you're getting here, okay? Again, here is just so you feel comfortable, like knowing, right, what the bill's gonna be about, etc. But as you'll see through my notes, I'm much more of a skills-based coach, and that's what you need regardless of the tournament. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have one brave soul. I don't care if it's affirmative or negative, okay? I'm gonna have you give your speech, all right? And then I'm gonna show you what notes look like, and then we'll use that as the discussion. Because if I'm out here talking about, right, like magnitude and you've never heard of that, right? Or if I'm talking about like indirect refutation and you've never heard of that, that might take us a different route. Any initial questions? If you have any we gotta sit there like in the TOC this year, and there's no hate because you know those kids are fantastic. Okay, but it's like we gotta sit there in the TOC final, and then no one has an authorship. Okay, so be ready to step up. All right. Okay, Adam, let me pull up my notes. You can't see them. I'll share them with you after because I don't want you to be like stressed, right, about like what I'm typing. That being said, I'll mute myself so you can't hear me typing. This is a unique situation where I'm not gonna time you because of that. So do you want to time yourself, or do you want to like?
I have a timer pulled up on my phone. I can just time myself.
Perfect. Heck yeah. Will you tell me if you're affirmative or negative?
I'm going negative.
All right, man. I'm gonna mute myself, and then dude, whenever you're ready, you go ahead. We'll all come back together after that. And while it'll be kind of direct between you and me, everyone will have access for questions. All right, so I'm gonna mute myself, and then when you're ready to go, dude, I'm ready to go.
Sounds good. In far too many instances of police brutality in the United States, the common defense of police officers is that it was largely self-defense, a split-second decision, a reactionary measure. And representatives, by passing this bill, we pass a reactionary measure that does nothing to change the status quo of violence in our law enforcement. The first reason I urge you to vote for the negation of this bill is that body cameras don't reduce police brutality, and it makes sense. In a heated situation where force becomes necessary, it is careful consideration that takes over, with more deeply ingrained behaviors coming to the fore. A body cam might prevent the odd swear word or inappropriate comment when an officer is relaxed and conscious of the device attached to their chest, but in a heated situation that requires instinct, If that instinct is to use force, it doesn't matter whether a camera's rolling. And numerous studies have backed this. A 2017 study of 2,600 officers in the Washington, D.C. area found no statistically significant impact on police officers' use of force when body cameras were present. Furthermore, a March 2019 study from George Mason University's Center for Evidence-Based Crime Policy, which looked at 70 other body-worn camera studies published through June of 2018, found relatively the same effects, and went even further to state that it also had no statistically significant impacts on most other measures of officer and citizens' behavior, namely citizens' view of police. So ultimately, we can see that wearing body cameras not only fails to reduce police brutality, but it also fails to mend the distrust that has divided so many communities across the nation. As a result, when you pass this bill, assuming that police officers will now be held more accountable, which obviously doesn't always happen, it still does nothing to proactively reduce police violence in our nation. Okay, I'll admit, this bill does implement one measure that is proactive, and that is taking away funding from some of the most effective ways to curb police brutality, namely better training. As reported by the American Public Media, in 34 states, police training is left to local agencies. And in many of the local agencies that don't implement programs like implicit bias training, police chiefs frequently cite cost and lack of staff as the primary reason for not having these programs. And the impact of not having these programs? The same report found that instances of police brutality most frequently occur in smaller and less funded departments, ones that often don't have these programs. So under this bill, crucial funding is being taken away from programs that will actually reduce police brutality, that in the status quo desperately need this money, and instead is being put towards an effective and reactionary measure that is doing nothing to change the status quo. Representatives, I urge you to vote in the negation of this bill because body cameras are an effective and reactionary measure, and the money allocated in Section 3A of this bill is much better spent on more effective measures. Representatives, be proactive and negate.
That's awesome, Adam. How'd you feel?
Not bad. I got tripped up and I was a little nervous, but I did better than I thought.
I'll tell you did great. I will also tell all of you, right? One, it's hard to be put on the spot, but two, if you did not compete at the TOC, I will tell you that the first time you're speaking in front of a computer at nationals is going to be a little awkward. So might as well get it out of the way here, right? Here's what we're going to do now, and however long it takes is however long it takes. Okay, do not be afraid to ask questions because you know that you have like the guarantee I'm going to edit yours anyway. So I'm going to share my screen. Adam, are you okay with that since you're going to get access to this document anyway? Perfect. If I can. Where's my little mouse? Oh, hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, I found it. Thank goodness. All right, there we go. So, boop, boop, boop. Kai, you're the only person I can see right now. Is my screen shared? Shake yes? Yes, perfect. Okay. What normally happens when we're actively together is this is what your notes start like. And this is gonna be kind of weird because I'm like talking to you, but also I'm talking to everyone else. Okay, so I might refer to you in the third person, but know that I'm talking to you, right? So common mistake that we all make, that Adam makes in his intro, but kudos to having a clean intro, okay, is right off the bat starting with the fallacy, okay? And that's so minor, but dang, folks, can it make the difference, okay? I preface all of this with your job as a congressional debater, not just like as a congressman, is to make your judge's life as simple as possible, okay? Like your judge should not have to think. Okay, so right off the bat in that first sentence, it's like far too many police officers do this, okay? My mind as a debate coach is like, well, far too many, I need a number, right? What is that? That's not the case for everyone, right? Sometimes you get parent judges or teachers who aren't active coaches or don't have that active background But think about it logically, right? If you have an English teacher, or any teacher for that matter, okay, they cover ethos, logos, pathos at some point, okay? So they're aware that like you've already made a fallacy. If you run into lawyers as judges, okay, they always prefer stats, right, instead of statements, so to speak. So again, finding something that isn't far too many. That being said, all of you are like, then do I start with a specific stat? That's like a question in and of itself that would be another lecture, right, with like intros. But otherwise, than that, point in this, specificity, okay? That's all I asked. Any initial questions on that from either Adam or anyone else? Okay, I would listen for the emoticon because I can only see like 3 of you right now, but I think you're sticking with me. Adam, also don't worry because I will go back and finish typing out actual sentences. Okay, also, cool. This is recorded. So normally when you send me a recorded speech, I play it back like 3 times, and it is not a waste of time by any means. That's just what I do. Okay, common mistake that all of you make that's hurting you: conjunctions. I am an English teacher, so I know what a conjunction is. Adam, you know what a conjunction is?
Conjunction function. What's your function?
Hey, there you go. And what does it do? Do you remember?
It conjoins 2 independent clauses.
Yeah, we mean conjoins. It joins. Yeah, there you go. It joins 2 different clauses. Okay. Adam does not have the problem in being too fast or too slow. Therefore, he doesn't have a speech pattern. But the common problem with using conjunctions is, 1, they're unnecessary. And then that links into the other 2 aspects. It is hurting your word economy. Most of you use it because you don't want to take a pause. You're afraid, right? Since you're speaking faster, that your brain and mouth are on like 2 different functions, and therefore you're going to mess up. Don't do it. Pauses say way more than words ever will, especially in a 3-minute speech. Honestly, the only way I can tell you guys to fix that right now, unless it's like me actively working with you, is to record yourself for sure. Record yourself, write out that speech, see how many times you say like and or but. And it's real icky, but unless we were going to do start stops, which is a kind of drill, which we can do. Oh, they're so miserable, guys. Like but they're so helpful. That is the quickest way for all of you to solve it. Any initial questions on why you shouldn't use conjunctions as like fillers? No? Everyone's hanging with me? Perfect. This is a point of contention. I mean, as a coach, folks, I will tell you that no matter what I say, you should always take it with a grain of salt, okay? Especially going to a camp, because I don't know where you come from, right? I don't know what access you have to coaches. So when I say what I'm about to say, choose what you will. When we say the word representatives, okay, some couple notes. Adam, are you qualified to nationals?
Yeah, I called in House.
House, perfect. Okay, yeah, I figured you did. Yeah, I feel like a little weird otherwise. Yeah, perfect. So Adam is aware at nationals we have 2 separate entities, so he knows to say representative. Oh my goodness, folks, please figure out whether you're in a House or a Senate. Okay, in this instance, we're good to go. We shouldn't run into that. That's just like a matter of professionalism and etiquette. And if you have more traditional judges, that stuff's really important to them. All right. The second thing, be careful about when you're saying representatives, because 99% of the time it is not necessary, right? It goes back to that etiquette portion that I was talking about, where you play the role. Don't get rid of that by any means, okay? But in a 3-minute speech, every single word that you say is critical. It is the most important word of your speech. So if you don't have to say it, don't say it. Okay. Okay. I wrote down reactionary measure. I don't want to get too far off on like jargon and or like rhetoric. Ding, 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 a bad word there, because a reactionary measure is not one. But I bring that up for 2 reasons. Is 1, I won't cover that right now because I don't think it's an issue with you, Adam, so I'm not going to bring it up. So I will focus on the second and most important one, is that if there is a theme, let me actually back up. Let me make this more simple. If there is a theme to speech and debate, primarily debate, you'll hear me say it a million times in this session and at camp, and or if you ever come across me again, do the work for the judge. Do the work for the judge. So reactionary measure is a very simple concept, but in context of the debate, Okay? Your job is to define what that means. That's very simple. But again, when I say do the work for the judge, it should be like handing something to them on a silver platter. Easy? Okay, so the biggest question, Adam, I have for you, you can ask, it's kind of at the bottom, but I figured I'd start with it up here. What's a net harm to negating?
The net harm to negating?
Yeah, like what's a net harm to the bill?
Oh, okay. So like, the net harm of the bill is that like the goal it's trying to accomplish is not, it's not going to like accomplish what it intended.
But is that a net harm, or that's just there are no positive benefits?
Maybe I'm not interpreting this right. I don't.
That's okay. Think about it this way. If you've never heard that terminology, folks, can I ask any of you? Let me see if I can see all of you. If you know what a net harm is, can you put your little thing on? No one does? Okay. You all are so nervous. Okay, well, no one's gonna help us out, Adam. So, oh wait, Ethan does. Ethan, can you unmute yourself and tell us what a net harm is? Hi, Ethan. You're not on mute anymore, so you can speak. Or not? Okay, okay. Bye, Ethan.
Wait, hello?
Ethan, can you hear us?
Hello?
You're good.
Ethan?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ethan. All right, Ethan, what's a net harm?
Oh, okay. Well, like, in the context of Congress, it means, like, when you pass these legislation, you would make the status quo worse than it is before you pass the legislation. So,
Perfect.
like, if it doesn't solve for a problem, that's not necessarily something that's bad. Well, it's not that it's, like, it's not a net harm.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Ethan. Perfect. Yeah, so you're good to go. Ethan, we could hear you, but you can put yourself back on mute. Again, all of this I'm like throwing at you guys right now is one, something that's relevant to all of Congress, even if it's not in your particular speech. Okay, but two, remember, I'll edit your speeches if this is seeming long, but it gets the conversation going. So when it comes to looking at legislation, we have like a lecture at camp, right, where it's like how to analyze a bill and then decide what to debate. That's pretty nuanced, right, for what most of you or how you learned how to do congressional debate, because it's a very simple concept where it's you look at the legislation, you support it, you don't, right? Like the ins and outs of Congress are way more specific than that. So when it comes to more progressive judges, okay, I don't want to like be out here labeling judges, but you will have judges who are coaches and or just graduated high school, so they tend to be more up to circuit, so to speak. So your more debate heavy or progressive judges actively analyze whether or not your arguments interact with the round. Okay, so both of Adam's case, I mean, the second one I would say could argue is certainly a harm. Okay, but if Adam is running a first point that is purely defensive, okay, meaning, does everyone know what defensive means? Adam, what's defensive mean? I never know. Some kids don't know.
I really don't have a confident answer.
Really? That's okay. Okay, Ethan, unmute yourself because you're the only one I can see right now. That's the only one that went off.
Yeah, so like in a defensive argument would be like if you do it before the argument is presented, it like prevents your side from being clashed. Like it's like pre-clash in like kind of a sense.
Perfect.
Like,
yeah, or it's not a reason to support. I'm sorry, if you're it's a reason to not support. Kind of confused there. Yeah, perfect. If Adam is going to run a defensive point, he needs to have a link to the round about why that is important or why that is necessary. Again, not every judge, okay, will pay attention to that. But if you're walking into the national final, right, and you have like 12 different judges, they're going over their paradigm, and one is about the debate in the round, you got to be thinking about that because it's never going to hurt you. But if you don't do the work for the judge and explain its relevance, that might not go well. I don't want to say it's not going to go well for you, right? But it's not going to yield as many benefits as you might think. Adam, questions on that?
I have a question. So like if we're looking specifically at this bill, like when would I use like that defensive argument? Like can you would it be possible to give an example of like what the setup would be, like what previously would have had to have happened?
That's a great question. Let me reiterate what Adam just asked. Okay, he's like, this is a defensive argument. When do I give it in the round? Look, folks, in a perfect world, I will have a whiteboard. I don't have one right now. I would draw it and be like, so imagine it's happening now. In a perfect world, all debate on a topic, right, on a bill follows a certain cycle. So you have constructives, refutation, and crystallization, right? In a perfect world, I would be like, Adam, based on this, this, and this speech, this is when to give this speech. That's not how Congress works, so ignore that, okay? The answer to that question is all of you should run whatever argument you have prepped at any given time. The importance of something called scope, which I'm not going to get too much into right now, determines the effectiveness of that argument. So Adam, you can run this, it doesn't eliminate police brutality at any point in time. But the scope aspect, okay, think about this, it's like a kaleidoscope, right? It's like looking that way or looking that way, right? Like what's happened before you in the debate and what's happened after. Whenever you run that argument, at the end of your argument, tell me what it means for the debate. Okay, even if you were the second, let's say you are the second speech, right? You're the first negative to go. At the end of that point, why does your argument matter in the round? Like you don't even need to know other arguments, Adam. Just tell me why that point and those studies are important in the round. Like what's your logic behind that?
Oh, like, am I answering this right now?
Yeah, that wasn't rhetorical. Like if you just see studies that prove it's not going to eliminate police brutality, what does that mean for the rest of the
that like what the affirmative is trying to do, like it's just a waste of money, like it's not.
Yeah, like
Okay.
all of the impacts of the affirmative are false, right? Like they don't come to fruition. Okay, that's the play of a defensive argument. Now, if you were like the second to last negative, why no one would make this argument before is questionable to me, right? But think about the kaleidoscope again. Okay, at this point in the debate, there's maybe one or two speakers after you. If you've just done this, what does it do to all of the affirmative arguments before you?
Just like throws them out the window.
Exactly. Okay, and that applies to all of you, that no matter what your point is, whether it's offense, defense, don't be thinking about like too heavily about what that means right now. But it doesn't matter what argument you have when you run it. Like one aspect that I could introduce right now, but I'm not going to because it's going to take too long, is giving constructives as the dead last speech. Okay, that's like super like, oh my gosh, controversial, but totally permissible. People win tournaments doing that. And it's because it's about the application to the debate and doing the work for the judge. So if we were back in our like ISD aspect, right, this would fall under debate because it's about linking. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen real quick so I can see all of you because it limits, perfect, it limits how much of you I can see. So now that I can see all of you, we only got through like 4 bullet points. But is there anyone who hasn't learned anything? That'd be so sad. I'm just kidding. But even like 4 points in, right? You see how one sentence can stem, oh my gosh, I need to get better at this, right? Or like, hell, I'm really good at this. I should keep improving that. Yeah, half of you have your screens off. You're probably like eating chips and stuff, more power to you. So I don't know if you're telling me yes or no, but I like to think that you're saying yes. So this point in time, only got through 4. Is there any questions that you may have about anything I've mentioned from any of you, not just Adam? Are you like so confused? Okay, Abigail has one. Hi, Abigail, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, so the first bullet point I think was about intros. You mentioned that one way to start it would be like with a statistic. Are there any other ways to start the speech, like other than a quote or a statistic?
In Adam's instance or just like in general?
Just in general.
Oh, hell yeah, girl. Okay, so we have like this whole like intro set. And honestly, most of mine, I would even say at this point, most of the stuff that you find on the NSDO website is probably mine, so I could probably just share it with you and it'd be cool. But yeah, there are countless different ways. I find it easier because I'm a very organized person to like label things, right? So if you have anecdote. What's an anecdote, Abigail, you know? I don't know.
Like a story?
Yeah, there you go. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start with an anecdote, right? You can start with numbers. You can start with historical precedent. I would avoid starting with refutation, but like you can start with refutation. So there are various different ways to have like intro set or with AGDs. In Adam's case, I mean, like I said, Adam has a clean intro. Like none of you are ever going to be in a world where an intro makes or breaks you unless you say a naughty word, right? Unless you absolutely repeat the exact same intro as someone else. Like those are the only two. I've seen kids speak on the wrong side and then like they still place because they're, you know, they're that chill at the event. So in essence, heck yeah, there are various ways. If you, when you go to share your speech with me, either through recording and or like actively written out, if you wanted to include a few intros, you're more than welcome to, and I'll tell you which ones yield more benefits than others.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Abigail. Yep, I saw another question down here, not that any of you can see where I'm pointing. Ariana, is that how you pronounce your name? You can unmute yourself. Heck yeah, Ariana, what's your question? And then Alexa will come to you next.
Okay, so on intros, I know that my team, or not my team, but like one of my teammates, she had like a document with a few intros that she would use all the time. Like, should you have a new intro all the time, or should you just have like your ones that you use?
Okay, I will tell you this. Sometimes my kids do that. I'm like, good job with you. But look, here's at the basis of it, what I will tell you. And it's not like 100% set in stone, is that what you say matters, right? The only time that you should be deferring to those preset intros is if, one, you're short on time, you had to switch sides. Like sometimes that strategically is the smartest choice for you. Okay, you had to switch side and you're like, oh, thank goodness I have this doc of intros already set. Okay, but again, I reiterate that like what you say in this activity, especially like now more than ever, truthfully, since we're one of the last, right, or we're one of the, I don't know, extracurriculars that can withstand this, I would be prepping, you know, things from scratch. That being said, I mean, no hate. A lot of you come from really small schools, and that's just what you got to do to survive. So as long as, you know, you're feeling it, it's powerful, you do what you got to do. Please don't steal other people's intros. That's the only thing I will stress, because one, I see it all the time, but two, I don't think you understand. Literally all I do is watch Congress and football. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's no football right now. So all I do is watch Congress. So when I see, like, no joke, I'll be at a local and I'll see this intro from someone at like Yale, and I'll be like, ah ha ha, because they didn't know I was there. Sorry, Ariana. Ariana muted herself because I was talking for so long. But good question, Ariana. All right, Alexa, you had a question. What was your question?
So I know you mentioned like rhetoric and filler words earlier, and then when I'm up there speaking like off my note card, I'll default to like reusing certain words.
Yep.
So what's the best method to sort of incorporate, like, first of all, higher vocabulary, but also get rid of your personal filler words when you're talking?
So great question, because this stems like what we're trying to do here, right? Not just about the topic, but Alexa's question was basically, how do I improve my word economy? And I'll cover vocabulary in a second. So similar to like and the conjunction fills, the easiest way that I can tell you to address that, twofold. Either one, record yourself, be it audio or video. It's awkward and cringy. And then like you kind of look at yourself and you're just like, oh, what's happening here? But it's so effective, because you visualizing it and getting to see and hear it is much different than you actively doing it and trying to stop yourself, okay? It sucks, but it's totally worth it. The second thing, if you are lucky enough to have teammates, is something called start stops. Start stops. So in instance, if Adam and I were doing a start stop with this speech, okay, Adam would start his speech, and every time he got to a fluency break, okay, or a filler like and, I would stop him and he would start the speech all over. It's so beautiful. Okay, it sucks, but the concept is to rewire your brain. Okay. Alexa's second question was, how do I start implementing like more advanced vocabulary? One, like as a teacher, I'm all like, hell yeah, study for that SAT, right? But two, in Congress, like, do not make this mistake, folks. Like, more interesting, right, or like higher language doesn't equate to better results. Okay, like the accessibility factor of you as a debater is what sells. Okay, so it is not a bad thing. See, even my simple language of saying like good versus bad, you know, maybe better that, because bad has become like a coded word, but never an issue. That being said, the easiest way, I know a lot of Congress kids, I did, a lot of my Congress kids now do extemp. You just got to start reading. You just got to start reading. Ha ha ha. So there you go. English teacher all over you. Ha. All right, other questions. You guys are asking great questions. And that's just like from 4 things. So think about how crazy like camp is, or just like active coaching. Any other questions? What's up, Adam?
So I just want to make sure, like, by accessibility, you mean like how easily you're conveying your argument? Is that like, or not? Okay.
Yep, that's exactly what I mean. Some of you just tend to have like a more advanced vocabulary because of like where you went to preschool, heck, you know, for where you went for like elementary school, your parents used to read to you. So it's not a bad thing by any means. I've never had a kid I've had to like knock down a pedestal, right? Like I've never had to be like, that word doesn't make, that's too much. But don't be out here pushing yourselves to learn more, like that's just not necessary. Reading is good, right? And words are fantastic. But if you're out here trying to make a simplistic sentence into like a fancy poem, it's just not happening. Right, folks? Okay, other aspects that I'm gonna generally, oh, Jacqueline has one. Perfect. Jacqueline, I'll bop over to you and then we'll bounce back.
Okay, you weren't saying anything, were you?
I'm sorry?
I thought I like interrupted you. Were you like done with that point? Because like I just did that.
I don't know. I teach freshmen, and like if I stop talking, they'll talk. So I just talk all the time. So you're more than welcome to just talk. So you did perfect, Jacqueline. What's your question?
Okay, so you know how you were saying earlier that like, oh, like make the judge's life easier, like kind of like you know that aspect, right? So like what's like, I'm still kind of confused, like what's like the recommended way for you to like make the judge's life easier in terms of like, you know, something like that?
Jacqueline, what a question. Oh my gosh, that might take up the next 20 minutes. That was a sick question. I'm gonna repeat it for anyone who didn't hear it. Jacqueline was like, Brittany, tattooed on your heart and soul in the inside of your brain is the phrase, do the work for the judge. What does that mean? Jacqueline, can I start by asking you, have you done any other debates?
Yeah.
What else have you done?
Policy.
What a unique factor. Good for you, first of all, for surviving that and being here with us.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched any other debates, specifically public forum? I've noticed that's the easiest crossover.
Maybe like once.
Okay, so I mean, I can use policy too. If any of you have done another debate or seen another debate, that's the easiest way to explain it. Because don't get me wrong, congressional debate, right, is still role playing, it's still speaking, but yo, guys, it's in the name, right? Like it is debating. I don't know where a lot of you are from, so I won't cover that so much. That is an important factor as I kind of explain this. But if you are going to travel nationally, okay, I'll bring us all down to that common platform, whether it is to nationals or whether it is to, you know, bid tournaments to qualify to the Tournament of Champions. It's accessible at any of those. So if you've ever watched or seen or done another debate, judges have a ballot in front of them, right? Like there is one debater against one debater or two debaters against two debaters. And the job of the judge, right, is to fill out their reason for decision, okay? Judge intervention is bad, okay? Jacqueline, what's judge intervention?
When the judge intervenes.
Yeah, like they have to use their own opinion, okay? Don't get me wrong, judges do that all the time. It's like, naughty, you shouldn't do that. But every judge votes off of what's given to them. Okay, so when I say you have to do the work for the judge in congressional debate, that starts when you look at a bill and you start preparing a speech. Okay, you have to, this is the trickiest part. Okay, so it starts there when you're looking at a bill, you're prepping a speech. The reason that cross-sex exists isn't so much for me to point out the issues that exist with your argument. It's more so, oh my goodness, for me to fill in the gaps. Because when you're prepping your speech, you are in the debate and you're thinking about it from the debate's perspective. Your judge is not in the debate. So when you go to like prep even 1 point for your speech, right? Think what I explained to Adam earlier about reactionary measure, reactionary measure, right? Your judge may know what that means, but they may not. Okay, so it sucks you got to spend like maybe a sentence or two or like 3 seconds explaining what that means, but guys, you have 3 minutes. If your judge is like, I don't know what that word means, and then they start dazing off trying to figure out what it means, they already missed 30 seconds of your speech. Like, and that's just you starting at prepping. By the time we get to, then keep in mind, like, there are anywhere from 10 kids to 20 kids in a chamber. So think back to the example I used for Adam, right, of doing the work for the judge with his defensive argument. You all can run whatever argument you want. but you got to explain to me why it matters, okay, in general for sure, but why it matters to the debate. Because your judge is getting 20 different arguments thrown at them. While in a debate, right, LD policy or PF, it's very clear because it's just 1-1, right, or 2-2. Oh my gosh, 20 kids, right? That means like 10 affirmative and then 10 negative, and then no one's arguments match up with each other. Oh my gosh, that's happening. And then no one's arguments like link together. So your job is like, oh, so hard. No joke, the kids who win tournaments are the cleanest kids, truthfully. Like sometimes it's just like, oh my God, they're so funny. That happened like once ever. But yeah, the cleanest kids, the most successful kids, those are the ones that, even if they don't consistently win tournaments, they're consistently placing at tournaments. So Jacqueline, that was a lot. And I know it's like, Brittany, I don't have any examples. Come to me at ISD, guys, I'll help you. I'll show you that. Solid question. Other questions?
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Any other questions? Are some of you just like, I have no idea what's going on. I just want to go to sleep. Don't shake your head. Why are you shaking your head? James, did you shake your head or do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I'm just agreeing with what you said. I'm just tired.
Oh,
and,
perfect.
I'm
I'm
taking notes.
Perfect. All right, guys. So here's where we're at. We have about 10 minutes left. I can't move my screen. Oh my gosh, I lost you. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. Normally, right, I'd come back to sharing my screen with you, but I'm just going to talk about some general aspects. Okay, because all of you will either record your speech and send it to my email, and I will open up a doc and actively type notes, or you're going to share me your pre-written speech. It'd be cool if it wasn't like that, but it's online at National, so you do you. Okay, that's a whole separate entity. And then I will actively respond to those. But general aspects right now, easy stuff like fluff. Okay, Alexa had asked this question. Really small things like we can see. Don't say we can see if we can't see it. It's so small, but like it wastes like 4 seconds of your time. And don't do that, right? Naughty. Your goal is always to eliminate as much fluff as possible. So, fun fact here, I'm gonna give you a drill. Whether you wanna do it or not is completely up to you. I believe that start stops are the most effective way for cutting like fluff, right, and bettering your word economy. But if you're struggling with various aspects that fall under that, right? So if you're having rhetoric issues, you go over time, okay? Like you're going like 320, that gavel is beating you down. I would recommend the 3-2-1 drill. So the 3-2-1 drill is you give your speech in 3 minutes, and then you give it in 2, and then you give it in 1. Okay. Now that seems so simple, but it's whether or not, you're going to do what you need to do effectively. So if we had time, I'd take a kid and, Bracel, throw you to the wolves, and we'd do it. You give a 3-minute speech, right? Adam has everything he needs. He has an intro, he has 2 arguments, he has the conclusion. When you move to 2 points, you have to consciously be thinking about what to keep that preserves the structure of your argument for the judges and in round. So heck yeah, your brain is like moving into overdrive, right? And actively thinking about where to cut, but do not sacrifice, okay? Do not sacrifice your arguments for like a full-blown intro, okay? Because the biggest mistake that kids make when we do that drill is they'll go to 2 minutes and their intro is like 45 seconds, okay? Cut what you don't need, okay? Because then by the time you get down to 1 minute, okay, your sentences or your intro is like 1 sentence, you got 30 seconds like for body points and then a conclusion, okay? So if you've noticed, a lot of what I'm throwing at you in that drill does not just have to do with the rhetoric, okay, but preserving the structure, cleanliness, deciding what you need and what you don't need, okay? Because it's like cool for me as a coach to be like, you don't need this, but what do you need in order to make your speech function? Okay, questions on that? Hannah has one. What's your question, Hannah?
So when you are trying to, like you said, do like that drill, and you live, let's say I was, reading it and I'm at like that 2 minute and I prioritize, something that I shouldn't have, like how would I guess is like choose evidence, like prioritize like what types of evidence would I? pick rather than like if I had to give up something? How would I know which way weighs more?
That's a solid question. I have like 12 answers to that. I'm trying to figure out what's the easiest one that doesn't stem a 30-minute discussion after. When this is probably the best response given our time limit. When you look at a bill, right? Like keep in mind our bill, right? Body cameras. Adam probably has the best argument to run on neg because it just eliminates the affirmative ground, right? And in that he has 2 studies, okay? Between those 2 studies, like it's up to him which one that he wants to preserve, but I bring all of this into play, or I explain that because when you look at the bill as is, you want to preserve the evidence that most directly links to that, like to the legislation itself. Remember earlier on my fake whiteboard where I was drawing the cycle of debate, right? So constructives, refutation, and then crystallization. It can get really skewed sometimes. So kids will run like really nuanced points that only refute like speeches that have, you know, gone with the flow of debate. And then we're so far from like what the legislation asks that it's like, what is going on? So again, the most accessible, the cleanest kids, right? Those are the ones that usually take it. That basically is the answer. So you preserve the evidence that most directly supports your advocacy, be it on the affirmative or negative under the legislation. That was kind of, complicated because I could go on forever, but handed that answer your question, or did it make it worse? You can be honest. It got it perfect. All right, folks, I'm going to cover a few more things, all right? But if you got questions, bop in. So here is where I probably could have backed up and answered it, I think, under Jacqueline's question, right, of like doing the work for the judge. We have, oh my gosh, it's my favorite lecture, and I totally get it because I'm a fish. This lecture at camp about impact analysis, okay? Again, you are Congress, okay? So you have real world impacts because that's your job. You got to figure out how your legislation is going to help or harm your people. But then you have debate impacts. I will say at nationals, this goes all over the place. In the TOC final, did anyone watch the TOC final? Oh, heck yeah. Okay, a lot of you. Perfect. So, albeit they are 4-minute speeches, okay, the TOC final this year, I don't know why, but it was a lot more like real world impacts as opposed to in-round and or debate impacts. I would even say, at Harvard this year, there were a lot more debate or in-round impacts. Because as the flow of debate necessitates, right, you got to tell me why your argument matters in the round. There is a huge debacle. This will be relevant in like 30 seconds. Okay, there's this huge debacle on what do you do as a debater in the round. Do you preserve real world impacts, debate impacts, or do you try to give both? Okay, I will tell you for nationals that you should use real world impacts. Okay, just because since we started using like the quarterfinal system in house, nationals is way bigger, and just some states are further along or further behind the national circuit. I'm trying not to like hate on any circuits, but that's just the truth, right? Like some preserve more traditions of like the OG Congress, and that is role playing and real world impacts, right? So in Adam's speech, we don't have one. His speech actually really in-round impacts. But I mean, body cameras, right, on police officers, real world impacts, people who would be impacted by that, right? Like especially people of color, like that's a direct real world impact. I will not cover in-round impacts too much, but if it comes up in your speech, you'll actively see me comment and be like, you should do this if it pops up in the debate. Eventually you'll get to this point where you can like read around and then you can figure out your arguments point in that. And that's pretty cool. The final thing that I will leave you with before I get to any questions, links back to my favorite phrase. What's my favorite phrase? Do the work for the judge. You were totally like mouthing it with me. I know that you were. If you have a reference in your speech about the bill, just tell me the exact part of the bill. Okay? Your judges are wonderful, intelligent, smart human beings, but they 99% of the time, okay, that's a lie. That's an exaggeration, Brittany. 89% of the time don't have the legislation in front of them. Like, and if they do, they're not looking at it, they're looking at you. So your job, do the work for them, make it easy. If you're going to say, right, this bill implements doing this, tell me in what section, okay? Because if there are 20 kids and they're all throwing around the action of the legislation, to tell me what's going on where in the legislation obviously makes my life easier, but truthfully, it's just like one more tiny thing that sets you apart. And all of these really minor things add up. So some of you, when you share like your speeches with me, will get really nuanced notes. And I like, it's up to you what you choose to implement, but trust me, after like 10 years and like, I don't know, I don't know, my kids have like 200 bits at this point. I don't know, I just like stopped adding at one point. Not like a mean way, like it's really cool, but it's about something bigger than that. I promise you that through all of that, like, because I've been watching Congress for so long, all that stuff's relevant. And if it's not going to be relevant here, it will be when you're like tearing it up in college, speaking in front of hundreds of people, changing the world. So look at that. All right, folks, I know that this is not easy for you, especially because a lot of you are on East Coast time. I'm over here in like Central time, living it up. It's 7. I'm going to dinner after this. But I'm leaving you with 2 things. Okay, I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I'm going to show you my email address. And then I'm going to show you, if I can get there, our dates. Come back up. Perfect. That's it. Oop, yeah. There we go. All right, perfect. So this is, I'll let you take a look at that. I feel like most of you know that already. Look, ISD is nowhere because it's online from the comfort of your own home. Yay. I'll be there the entire time. Okay, here's what you really want. Okay, Becca and I truly do promise that. You all are more than welcome to share it with Becca. I know for both of us to ensure that we give you quality responses in a certain time frame. It'd be cool if you're here that you just share it with me and that her kids share it with just her. But that is my email address when it comes to what you so choose to share with me, okay? Up to you. If you want to send me a recording, I will absolutely take notes on that. That is preferable, okay? Because that way I can see and give you comments on like location and stuff if you're competing at nationals, because it's online, it's a different platform. But if you are one of those kiddos who typed out your entire speech, you're more than welcome to send me that as well. And heck, guys, honestly, like any kid can tell you who's been to camp, even if like they're not mine. I just answer questions throughout the year. So if you have questions, like shoot me an email. I will answer it. I promise you. I can't open this, so I can't see all of you. Oh, there we go. I can see all of you now. All right, folks, with that, are there any lasting questions that you may have? Or is Ethan just being like, no, I don't know what you're doing. What is that? Do we have questions? Or are you just being like, that was awesome? Abigail, do you have a question? Okay, go. Okay,
Yeah.
go. Abigail, what's your question?
Okay, so you mentioned the like full written out speeches. I know some people have like an opinion about whether you should just write it all out beforehand or just have some evidence ready and make up a lot of it like in the round. Do you have like a preference on that or an opinion?
Solid question, folks. Until we went online this year, my answer, 112%, because that's totally possible, English teacher, not a math teacher, was that you should not pre-write your speech, okay? Like you should absolutely like prep it out, but like, no, like, boo, boo, boo. Then the TOC happened, it's just like, everyone's doing it, man. And it like, I fully believe, I guess, at this point that this is kind of like the great equalizer, right? Because everyone can be looking directly at their speech, have impeccable fluency, so it comes down to, argumentation. So for nationals, like, it's completely up to you. Mess around beforehand. and figure out what works for you. Like for my kids at the TOC, it was a mix. So like they would be flowing on one piece of paper. And if they had to give a late round speech, they were speaking like right off of their notepad. But if it was an early constructive, they had it almost typed out. So normally under normal circumstances, no, but given this is probably our new normal for the time being, you got to figure out what's most comfortable for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Jacqueline, did you have a question? Okay, it looks like Jacqueline, yeah, Ethan, and then Hannah had a question. Then we'll wrap it on up. Jacqueline, what was your question?
Okay. Can you go back to the other slide about the camp? That's an online camp, obviously, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, I'm gonna take a picture of that real quick.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I'm actually liking this.
I was gonna ask if I could be in it, and then I remembered our settings.
Wait, I don't know how to take this off. Okay, just kidding. Okay.
Yeah, if not, folks, like again, in the email, I can just send you a link to our website, or I can answer those questions. I'm a woman, multifaceted, multi-talented. Becca, was that your only question?
Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm gonna go Hannah, and then I'm gonna go Ethan, and then we're all gonna have a beautiful Friday night, and I am gonna eat some chicken. So Hannah, what's your question?
Do you think that for like preparation for the questions, we should have blocks like we do in PA?
What do you mean for questions? Like when someone asks you in questioning, like to respond with stats and stuff?
Yeah.
No, I don't see a world in which people have been marked down, even if they say, I don't know if they say it confidently, but like I've never seen a world in which kids get marked down because they don't use stats in responding to questions. Like, yeah, your job is to know enough about the topic that you can respond to it, but your job is more so to know everything about your argument. You can honestly even ask that in questioning. I'll explain. I'll just link it to the PowerPoint. But at camp, when we talk about cross-sex, we talk about bearing, which means confidence, because 90% of the time, these are just random stats I'm making, but a large portion of the time, there we go, your bearing, right, even if you say, I don't know, is going to take you way farther than if you have something memorized and are able to speak off. Not all judges are listening during cross-sex, so don't stress yourself out about something you don't need to. Okay. All right, Ethan, take it home. Last question of the night. What do you got?
So the recordings we send you, like on the email, do you want does it have to just be this legislation, like the police body cameras?
I'm not gonna, it does not bother. That's a great question. I don't care. You do you. I'm not gonna like penalize you because you sent me something else.
Okay.
I think that one's the easiest one. I then actually would encourage you to send me something that you really, really struggle with. I chose this one because I thought that this was gonna go very different. But as camp will show you, right, we like attend to your needs. So as long as no, because there's not a bill on there I wouldn't edit or like I wouldn't tell you to speak on. So heck yeah, man. Do whatever you gotta do. I'll take it. All right, folks, any other questions? I know I said Ethan was the last one, but I'm a nice person. No? All right, folks, look, if this is our, first and only interaction, you are awesome. I didn't see half of you because you shut your screen off, but I'm sure you are a beautiful, wonderful person. If not, folks, you'll hear from me in your email, and that's all I got from you. Okay? Okay, bye guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Hang on
much.
here for like a minute, so I'll watch all you leave. Like little birds out of the nest. So beautiful.
Wait, I had one quick question.
Who's speaking? It's moving so fast. Is it Adam?
Yeah, it's me. Okay. So this is kind of selfish, but like if I record my speech and send it to you, would you do another analysis of it maybe? Like one that's like,
wait, what do you mean like another speech? Are you just gonna record the same speech?
well, yeah, because I'm assuming you didn't get like all
I see what you're saying. Yeah, this is recorded, but heck yeah, that's what I said earlier. Yes, but yeah, for sure. Okay. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, if you want to do the negative side, that's fine too. Like this is it's just stuff we've been doing at camp anyway. Plus, like whatever helps you. So go ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
You have to leave. I can't leave yet, so just go away.
If this is finite, and then we are not focusing on training, here's what you are losing. Here's the restaurant you can't go to.
Okay.
To do that, you might want to flip the points.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So once you have, and I think to me, your intro and your conclusion are telling me the story that I'll remember of your speech is Ath is painting a really beautiful picture. None of it will happen. That's what I'm getting right now. What you want to shift it to is Ath is painting a really beautiful picture. Let me tell you not only why it won't happen, but why this bill makes sure it will never happen.
So in theory, could I also like plan on a, like if I'm asked that question, I need to add the stuff into my speech, but like what's the word? Like complacency type thing? Or that too, like that can apply to everything?
It can apply to everything, but there are certain issues where complacency is more relevant. So gun violence, for example, like I was saying earlier, uniquely has the problem of an issue attention cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's actually a really interesting TED talk that I will copy and paste into this. I don't know if it like is something you'd make a point about, but it's all about intersectionality, and the speaker starts by reading off a list of men who have died of police brutality, and everyone starts by standing. And then
yeah.
I did
that at camp.
Yeah, so you start standing, and then when you no longer recognize a name, you sit. So she goes through like Black men who have been killed from police brutality, and most people are still standing in the audience. And then she starts listing women, and most people sit because they haven't heard of it. It's just not as notable, and that, or it's not as notable. It doesn't get the same attention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how she starts to talk about intersectionality, that because these women are not only women and not only Black, but Black women, their narrative is suddenly not told. If that overlaps with issue attention cycle, if there's some connection there that you see where you can prove that like these are actually things that matter from issue attention cycle. I would say if it's something that is likely to appear in BuzzFeed News, which these issues are, there is perhaps a complacency argument to be made.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a legit concern.
That makes sense.
And then Madison, I think that one thing that I loved was, and also Nora, there was a lot of good here. I really like the story that you're framing it with, that like you're bookending it with, and it's super important. That's one thing for everybody to know that I really like in conclusions, is when you tie that bow, when you come back with the bookend. So Madison, one thing that I loved was the concession, was saying like, I'm going to acknowledge that privacy will go down. So with your intro, you want to have something that is a little, and this is relevant for everybody, and body cameras is a tough one for this. You want to have something a little bit more attention grabbing, but you have to be really sensitive about it. So I remember at Emory finals last year, there was like a bill about cactuses or something, and no one knew what to do with it, but the stakes were not especially high. So you could make some weird, using the onion intro because you're impacting cactuses. That's clearly not something we'd want to do here, right? We're not going to do like the punny wordplay, because the stakes here and the stakeholders are much different. But you still want to do something to grab the judge's attention. And you want to remember that I have been known to lose my focus when I'm parleying in an actual tournament. You have to assume going into Nats that your judge's focus on you is more compromised than it has ever been. Because when I'm home, my couch and my TV are right there. My dog is jumping on me because she wants to go sit on that couch with me. My snacks are also so close. My ability to focus on the 5 hours of Zoom is so much lower. So you've got to grab my attention, because if it really, and that's anybody. So if you open with something where it's different, where I know that the next 3 minutes are going to be important insofar as they bring something new, I am more likely to think less about my snacks. I am now thinking, oh, I'm hungry, if no one can tell. I had like a bunch of Zoom meetings through dinner, which is why all of my examples for the last hour have been about food. So what I think you want to shift in, this is a moment where you want to make an assumption of where you want to resituate in one of two ways. One, you want to, if it's early enough, you'd want to set it as a burden, where any neg speaker who gets up here, actually don't say gets up here, I always find that aggressive. Any neg speaker who argues that we need to prioritize privacy needs to contend with everything I'm about to say about the brutality that goes down, where you're creating a very clear roadblock that they're going to have to clear and mention you again if they want to outweigh privacy as the thing that should get them more attention. Or if it's later, you'll just do it as refutation. So representatives X, Y, and Z have all mentioned why privacy decreasing is problematic, knowing that you'll likely have to contend with the specific groups we talked about, more police in communities of color, witnesses, minors. We are losing privacy for a lot of people. And then in your refutation, you can do one of two things. You can, or one of many things. You can either say why that privacy actually doesn't decrease, which might come to this idea you have that civilians can have footage erased. That is important. Or you can tell me why the lost privacy, even for those groups, is not as compelling as this decrease in brutality. So in a community of color, for example, we can all perhaps concede or agree that it is deeply problematic on either side of this seesaw to either have more surveillance there or to have more brutality there. But what you might be asking is to choose a lesser of two evils, or to choose the item that is more likely to move toward long-term change that then won't have either of those problems in those communities. So that is my recommendation for everybody. Do as much creation of a fake round as you can and think about, how would I change this? How would I plug it in? How would I, and that's something that you can, if you're sitting on a crystal, that's one other thing that I think really annoys judges. If you're sitting on a crystal and it takes forever to get someone up for an early speech, people kind of remember that. So take your anticipated crystal and just turn whatever you were going to crystallize into a burden that you then use earlier. So that would, and then I would also in yours add warrants. So it's really important to create organization that is offensive at every turn. So there are undeniable benefits. Tell me where that's coming from in the legislation, and the reliability, you want to say why it's true. And the more warrants that you build in, the more work that someone has to do to refute it.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for me? All right, like I said, please feel free to email me. Sending me a recording is ideal. If you want to do it in the place that you anticipate working for NATS, then I can give a little bit more feedback around, like, your lighting is weird or there's a weird echo. So whatever you want to send me. So feel free to send me recordings, send me questions. If you want to include in your email, I have consistently gotten feedback that I do this thing weird or that I do this thing well. Just whatever you think it's helpful for me to know, please email me. I have literally no plans this weekend, but I will probably bake something. I've been doing so much baking. So really the more you email me, the fewer cookies I eat. Those are the stakes for this weekend. Other than that, this was actually super fun. Even though I'm tired, it was like a lot of fun to get into camp mode. And I think, like we're saying, we have to, we acknowledge that this is never going to feel exactly like camp. But for me, at least, like, this felt super connected in a way that, like, my life is not full of right now, or anybody's. So hopefully other people also just sort of got that community moment. And that's something that I think, even over Zoom, we can still really do at camp. So ISD Online, I hope to see many of you. It will be super fun. And there's the benefit of it is that you're going to have so much more one-on-one attention than we're able to do in person, which will be awesome. And I'm excited to see many of you at NATS. So feel free to email me, and thank you for your hard work on a Friday night and participating. It was awesome.
Sorry, one last question. Do we have access to that document that you were writing the flows on and everything?
For sure. If you go to, here, you know what, I'll put this in the chat. So if
awesome. Thank you.
Go there, and then it has my info on there if you want more.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
And bye.
Thank you for taking the time to
Thank
do
you so
this.
much.
Of course, it was fun. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.